One of the most important things, never, ever quit.
Everything I touched turned to gold immediately. Everything I did turned to gold, and life started getting boring. And then one day, the pedestal was knocked out from under me. Some people are not destined to make a lot of money, and that's fine, and they can be very happy. In fact, they can be much happier by not. Those people shouldn't be, because they'll ruin their lives. I mean, they'll go and they'll put up their house, and they'll mortgage their cars and everything else they own, and they'll go into business, and they shouldn't necessarily be in business. Not everybody is meant to be a business person. Life is sort of a pretty short experience, and you have to maintain some kind of an equilibrium, and the way I maintain that is to work. And I enjoy what I do. I love what I do, and I hope I do it well. And so I just keep going forward, Dan, and so far it's paid off.
Never quit. You know, I went to a great school. I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and in that school, I met a lot of people heading industry today and over the past, very smart people. But I've watched some of the people grow. I've watched some of the most incredible, brilliant students, and they didn't make it like other people made it because they didn't have that drive. They didn't have that never give up ability. I don't know if it's an ability or if you have it, just you can't quit. And I've seen people quitting, and if they would have held out longer, they would have been successful. I've seen it so much. I've seen some of the most brilliant people in the world that never made it because they were quitters. They were just quitters. They would quit. They just couldn't take it. They couldn't whatever. One of the things about loving what you do is that it's not work, and therefore you don't quit automatically. It's a lot easier not to quit. But you can never give up. Now, you have to also have flexibility, though. You can't necessarily say, I'm never giving up, and you got to be able to weave and bob. You don't have to go through a concrete wall when you can go over it or around it or under it or something. You have to have flexibility. You have to always be able to change course a little bit, maybe always with that same goal, but don't quit. When I was young, I wanted to, well, my father built in Brooklyn and Queens, the boroughs, and he did a great job. He was a very strong guy, but a good guy, a guy with a tremendous heart, but he was strong, very powerful type of personality. And he'd build single-family housing, whatever he built, but he'd save the nails and the sawdust and the chips of wood, and he'd take them and sell them. I mean, it's like extreme, but he was very extreme. I'll give you a quick story. So we have apartment buildings, and I walked to my father's desk in Brooklyn. This is a long time, I was young. And there's a picture of a roach, a cockroach, on a can, like a paint can, a 5-gallon paint can, and sitting on his desk. I said, Dad, what the hell is that? The cockroach was turned upside down, dead. And it said, the name of the product was Bye Bye Roach. And my father said, you know, this stuff is the greatest stuff we've ever used, but it's too expensive. I don't like it. So I'm sending it up to your uncle at MIT. They're going to analyze it. He's going to send it back and tell me what ingredients are in. I said, what are you doing, Dad? He said, I can save $4 a gallon. I say, Pop, is it really worth it? He said, yeah, it's worth it. That's the way you make money. And to a certain extent, you know, it's not penny wise. You got to save the pennies. You got to be, that's a great thinking. So he wants to take something that's expensive, that's good, and send it up to a laboratory at MIT, find out what the ingredients are, because he can save a couple of dollars a gallon.
Well, I think that without a certain innate intelligence and without a certain drive, you're not going to be successful. And I think that's the thing that I learned more than anything else, Nancy, was loyalty. Because I'm like this great loyalty freak. I'm loyal to a point of the absurd.
Knowledge. But if it's one word's very hard for that, but the word is knowledge. But you get knowledge through experience. One of the things people talk about is luck. And I do believe that people are lucky, and some people are luckier than others. I do believe that. But there's also an expression, the harder you work, the luckier you get. And I can tell you 10 instances where I didn't quit when it was 1990, the world was coming down, the debt markets were to everybody, all of my friends and enemies were going bankrupt. I never did. The times were actually just terrible. And even today, you look at times and you see what happens, and you have to learn. But the word luck is very interesting. But if I didn't work really hard, I probably would not, almost definitely would not be here today. And unless you had me up as a man who at one point was successful, but let's see what a loser looks like. So you have to work hard, because it is true, you can develop luck through hard work.
Putting a wife to work is a very dangerous thing. I mean, we'll do an educational program here. Okay? If you're in business for yourself, I really think it's a bad idea to put your wife working for you. I think it's a really bad idea. I think that was the single greatest cause of what happened to my marriage with Ivana.
You know, money isn't a totally essential ingredient, but it does make life a little bit easier in terms of the medical and in terms, people say, well, money can't buy happiness, and they're absolutely right. But it does make it easier. It means that there are problems that you would have if you didn't have money that you just won't have, to the same extent. So yeah. I really look at money as being something that is totally unessential, but something that you should certainly try and have enough of.
My life was so great in so many ways. The business was so great, and even the concept. A beautiful girlfriend, beautiful wife, beautiful everything. Life was just a bowl of cherries.
If I were going to give career advice to somebody, it would be that you have to love it. You have to really want it, and you have to love what you're doing. There are so many people that are forced through family pressure or something into doing something that they don't believe in, that they don't like. You've got to go after the kind of job you like. You may love the airline business. Now, the airline business is a terrible business, but you'll probably do better within the airline business if you love it than you will in a better business in the airline business if you don't. So you have to go into something that you like.
So, to me, success was important, but and I think this is true for almost everybody in the room. I think you have to love what you do. If you don't love what you do, you're not going to be successful. And I loved what I did. I did real estate. I went in early. I always loved sports. I would have loved to be any kind. I'm not a bad golfer, right? When I talked about success, I always started, you have to do something you love. If you don't do what you love, you're most likely not going to be successful. And you're going to have a lot of people, your parents included, they're going to be saying, don't do that, don't do that. And you have to listen to them. They're wise. They've been around. They've seen. And sometimes, and I tell people, sometimes they go into a business where basically you can't be successful. Nobody's successful. If you can get away from that, get away from it. If you can. But you have to make sure that you do something that you love. Try to go into something that you love that can be a good business. So, a lot of people go into businesses that don't work. Are just not. But a lot of that was early upbringing. I'd always say to them, no drugs, no alcohol, no cigarettes. And now I add for Baron, and I just drive them crazy. I'd say every time they'd leave, no drugs, no alcohol, no cigarettes. Repeat after me, and I'd have to repeat. They go, Ivanka would go, Dad, will you leave me alone? But I drum it into their heads. And you have to get through those artificial barriers. I call them artificial barriers because you can do something about it until it's too late.
There are many stories of people that became successful later in their life by doing other things, and they got out of something that they didn't like. And one of them is a friend of mine. He was a failure on Wall Street. His family was very important and big on Wall Street, but he wasn't cut out for it. He wasn't tough enough for it. He probably wasn't smart enough for it. And he was a failure on Wall Street. And all of his life, he was just born to be on Wall Street, but it didn't work out that way. So he stayed, and he didn't do particularly well, but he stayed and stayed. And I used to tell him, just go out and do something else. But then what happened is, at his golf course, they made him the head of the greens committee. They were redoing all of the fairways, all of the greens. And they did it really because they felt sorry for him and nobody else wanted the job. And he did a spectacular job. He was there at 5 o'clock in the morning with the contractors. He worked really hard. He wouldn't get home till 8:30 in the evening. He loved what he was doing. And I told him, you ought to go out and build golf courses. This is what you're good at. And he laughed at me. He said, Donald, I could never do that. I have to be on Wall Street. I'm expected to be on Wall Street. I have to be on Wall Street. I said, yeah, but you're not happy and you're not good at it. He said, it doesn't matter. I'm expected to be there. Well, he went back. He was miserable. And ultimately, about 5 years ago, he developed a golf course building business where he renovates and builds golf courses. He's doing a spectacular job. It couldn't be better. He couldn't be happier. It's the first time in his life he's doing well, and the first time in his life he's happy.